Hello, and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar here, Monday evening, coming off of a Forest win as Tom gets me up to speed on football over the pond. But Tom, you seem excited this evening.
Yeah, I'm excited now. It took a long time to get there, but excited now. Looking forward to the week of golf ahead now that I've got the biggest obstacle of the week out of the way. So anything from here now is a win. Good tournament last week in Italy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Good for Adrian Meronk. Popular type of pick this past week, and all but secures a Ryder Cup spot if he continues the season that he has had so far. And I thought we were a little early on that Marco Simone turning into Open de France or a different type of driving requirement. Some big hitters did propel themselves, but it was a better test than what we had seen the previous 2 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've made some good adjustments. They've made it a bit tough. I didn't see a whole bunch of it this past weekend. I was away for a 30th, but from what I saw, it's definitely a little bit trickier. There's a little bit of thought going into it, and ultimately that's what Donald spoke to about the changes he was going to make ahead of the Ryder Cup. So the fact that Meronk still relished that test, I think, was a massive bonus. And like you say, I think he's basically secured his position now, unless he gets injured or kind of really loses his form. I mean, we did see someone like Victor Perez, who looked like a lock for a long time, kind of lose out in the end. That was more on a points basis, right? Whereas Meronk's kind of got the win on the most important golf course of the season. So I think, he probably deserves his place at this point. I think he probably would have got in anyway, even if he didn't win there, right? Just based on talent and form alone. But good to see him kind of vault himself to the top of those. We sort of said there was like 6 or 7 favourites at the top, all of them kind of on the periphery, and it was good to see someone emerge and really stake a claim. And he's now won the Irish, Australian and Italian Open. Like, he's won some really important events. It's pretty impressive.
No, it's been a huge leap, and those are the kind of expectations that you have for a golfer like him. And I don't believe he's all that far from special temporary membership on the PGA too. So you could see him. I actually kind of fancy him if he could kind of come around a little bit for next week too, on a test. It's going to be pretty demanding off the tee at Oak Hill. So it should be interesting for Meronk. And with that, we're headed to Belgium this week, the home of what I deem the greatest golf tournament that might have ever existed, Tom. They have the Masters, you have the Open Championship, but it was no Belgian knockout. That event not only was incredibly profitable, hitting back-to-back winners in Otegi and, of course, Guido Migliozzi, but it was just such a fun format. 36 holes of stroke play into 36, I believe, that advanced through the cut, that did the knockout. 9-hole matches. It was a lot of fun. It was kind of like that Perth Super 6 that they've had in the past that did the stroke play into match play. Even the international ladies event this past week, the Crown, they had some unique formats with the 2 singles and the 2 doubles. I like unique twists on traditional golf, and that's what the Belgian knockout was. But we're still teeing it up at Ringfin this week. Any thoughts on the course overall?
Yeah, so I think one of the things we would probably say is that it is probably important enough to look at those results from the Belgian knockout, but you kind of got to take into consideration that once people because they were just trying to make that cut to get into the knockout format, they probably weren't playing as aggressively as they would have been if they were trying to get to the top of a 4-round stroke play event, I think. So there's a certain element of that where you had to look at different ways they would have played it, but ultimately form is form. So if someone had a couple of good rounds in a stroke play thing before coming here, in 2022 and playing well, then that's absolutely a bonus as well. But I think for me, it's weird because like Bombers prevailed last year, but it wasn't because they hit it the furthest, which doesn't make any sense, right? It's a classic thing of like long hitters can club down easier, and you see the likes that I always to akin to kind of like a Harbour Town or whatever with DJ and people like that. As long as it was Valspar, like it's beneficial to be long because you can take positional clubs off the tee and still have an advantage. So it's one of those, I think, unless you sort of disagree, that it's more power hitters, but not because they have to go and hit it 350 yards to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember the likes of, Darius Van Driel, Soren Keltsen, Justin Walters, like names that played the course well, that often can't compete when you get, unless they're on the absolute peak of their game, that really aren't holding the candle to some of the guys when you get on those big driver demanding tests. Guido, in that like championship match, there was multiple par fours that were like traditional par fours for many, in which he was driving like the greenside bunker multiple times. I think Morank did that a little bit last year too. So it's tight. It's pretty tree lined, right? And Guido had success in the match at Kenya Open when it was at Karen Country Club. That was a tighter tree line track, and I think that's more. You hit it. I mean, you don't need to drive it exceptional. You can club down with it. It's really approach on in. And some of the best players in the field last year just happened to be really good drivers of the golf ball. So I am taking a little bit different stand than probably we have, and I really like this course. I'm excited for this event. Belgian golf, when we had kind of the Peters and Dietrich, and then Colzarts was running it, like it was really cool. It was a really unique home open. So the likes of Horsfield winning last year and then not being here obviously this year is a little bit different twist on it all, but still excited for the course. I think the course is a fun one.
Yeah, and like to your point earlier about the par fours last year, the top five, or the top five players were first, third, seventh, and 32nd in par four scoring. So Becker was a bit of an outlier, finishing 32nd in par four scoring, but he led the par five, so that's how he did it that week. But ultimately, it was those that played the par fours at best that succeeded, which is quite often the case. Like that's almost always the case in most tournaments because there's so many of those holes, right? But yeah, I think it is definitely just a second shot course, and it's as simple as that. It is tight. It is. I think it just rewards the best players over 4 days, which is what you really want from a golf course. Like some courses, you can kind of get away with really wild driving and a bit of luck, and I don't think that really comes true here. I think you need to be really on your game, and tee to green will be really important.
Yeah, and overall, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's a decent field, not the same strength that we've seen. Obviously, a major next week. You're seeing a little bit different. So I think overall, it's fun. And before we get the odds, I don't want to forget to congratulate myself on last week at the Italian Open. I did nail the 1-2 in the low Italians. Guido was the low Italian of the week. Aaron Zemmer was second. So we did say we had the reverse forecast on those guys, the exacta 1-2. I mean, it didn't pay out at the 20,000 to 1, in which it would have, but just because they finished T64, T68, I mean, Tom, they made the weekend. Yeah,
you picked out the home favourites, right? Like that's a competitive market, and 2,000 to 1 making the cut and doing all that is absolutely great. So, yeah, I think so. Honestly, actually, I think, like all joking aside, I thought we actually did okay last week in terms of, like, we didn't get the winner, but like Campillo was up there. We had Daniel Van Zonda was inside the top 5. Like we had some nice picks. It just didn't really fall our way, and it wasn't one of those like hard luck Sunday ones. It never really felt like we really had a chance, but it was certainly ones where I think we made the right selections and just didn't kind of get there. And I think that would be, I think we'll find the right formula this week. I think we're taking slightly different approaches, but I think between us we'll get the right picks. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, 100%. And before we even start, I want to make sure I give a shout out to our audio listeners, those that want to listen to us on your commute into work tomorrow morning or, Wednesday night before lock. You can find us at Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, the mix, available on all podcast platforms. So we appreciate ratings, reviews, subscribes to us. It goes a long way on YouTube. We love the comments every week that you guys give us. So really appreciate you all. And with that being said, let's dive in. I go a little bit down the board. I mean, if you look at kind of those that are leading the market, right, we have, I think by this point, Alexander Bjork is the clear favorite, as low as 15 to 1 on some books, which has surpassed Thomas Dietrich, who was kind of side by side with those guys. You see Adrian Otegui coming back, in which, he was a previous winner here. Jorge Campillo, which a little worried about that he is just so close to breaking through yet again. But, Tom, you are sticking with our main man, Yannick Paul. Tell us why.
I just can't get away from the fact that I think he's going to win on this run. So whereas I think Campillo has had his win and is just keeping that run of form going, and I thought that at 33, 35 to 1 last week, he was kind of unavoidable, whereas this week he's gone into the price he should be. I still think Yannick Paul is just absolutely fire. Like, and he was 8th going into the final round last week and finished 23rd. And, yes, his ball striking's dipped a little bit, and that's sort of reason for concern. But he was second on this golf course last year, first time he's seen it, and I think that's just really important. I think ultimately he's had the first look around it. He's probably the form horse of anybody at the top. I know there's guys that are playing well. Bjork is playing well, of course, but Paul's the one that's had the most chances to win. And I don't necessarily feel like Alexander Bjork's going to win. That's kind of the main takeaway I've got from that. I think he could very easily finish fourth or fifth, which is why the kind of each way price is factored in. And just quickly on Thomas Dietrich, like I feel like what he's done on the PGA Tour is what Moronk could go and do. Like just had some really strong positive results that haven't necessarily materialised yet, but it could be some kind of first year getting used to the courses and stuff. So good little model for him there. But yeah, back to Paul. I'm just really impressed with how good he's been this season. He's right in the Ryder Cup hunt, which is really important. And given the field strength, I thought the 21 was absolutely fine. He's had a chance to win in probably 3 of his last 5 events, 6 events. So really impressed with him and think he can go and do it this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm rooting for it. Want him, to make the big leap up that we know he can. With me, so I was just diving in kind of that top of the board. We had what it would have been in the Honda Championship, a really long conversation about Rikuya Hoshino. I think you were on him. He was top 5, I believe 4th going into the final round of that event. Somebody who has been phenomenal on the Japanese golf tour. If you look at his closing events of the year last year and then into this year, 1st, 2nd, 8th, 7th, 6th in his first DP World Tour event. And then he went back-to-back miscuts on the DP World Tour. 2nd, when he went back to the Japanese tour, he had that top 5 going to the last round where he kind of melted, finished 23rd, and then 2nd last time out at the Crowns on the Japanese golf tour. So 35-1, I think, he was 28s, maybe 25s that week when we closed. It made sense, maybe a little bit more on home soil. Just looking into kind of his statistics when we've gotten to have strokes gained, I don't think, he has been maybe potentially the driver for him is just not to par in which you have to play on some of the courses that he had being teeing it up on. So you look at him when he's been in open championships, even the US Open in which he was, 2021, where he was 26, he got elite approach game. I believe in that event, he was 1st in overall strokes gained approach at that 2021 US Open. Overall, for me, it just seems that he is not the best driver of the golf ball, but he has been very good with his irons. Technically, I don't know with strokes gained. He had led the field in approach at that event prior to, having actual shot tracker data. But I think it might be more of a course fit for him this time around. I'm a little concerned he missed at Muthaya, which is the Magical Kenya Open, because it was somewhat similar. But he was still kind of finding the form, bounce right back, 35-1 for me with Hoshino.
Yeah, and I don't sort of profess to have great knowledge of the Japanese tour outside of the ones that we see kind of crossing over the DP World Tour. But I think this is a sort of test they're kind of used to, these kind of tree line tests, very technical. And, yes, you can have an advantage by driving, but it's not, quite essential. And, to say to the point at the top of the show where I said the longer drivers have prospered, I don't think you have to do that. I think it's just something that we had from a very small sample stage from last year of Horsfield, Ryan Fox and people like that who ultimately were just the better players in the field anyway. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this one pans out. I think it's still second shot regardless of how you look at it, and that will really favour Hoshino. So there's nothing really in his file that suggests he can't win, right? He's got bigger. He's got 10 points bigger because it's not in Japan. So, why not?
Yeah, that's really kind of where I'm landing in regards to taking the shot there. I'm going to go into the mid-range for the next couple selections. One that we were kind of early also on last week. We had a decent back and forth on Eddie Pepperell leading into last week. We didn't end up landing there just due to the fact that Marco Simone was a driver's test. It was something that's not really, even though the corollaries made a lot of sense, it really wasn't Eddie's wheelhouse. What's he do? He shows up into the mix, first time golfing in 3 months outside of the simulator, and he's top 10, and realistically, I mean, if those guys came back to the field at all, it seemed like Eddie had a shot at it, deep into Saturday. So now on a course that should play much more into his hands, the odds have chopped in half, right? He's 45-1 now instead of 110-1 that he was last week. But Eddie often didn't even carry a driver in his bag.
Nah.
So he can play fairway. He can play his elite approach game. And we saw the stretch run that Eddie got onto a summer ago, in which it was just reproducing results with irons over and over again. So he, to me, at 45-1 is one that I was very keen on and don't want to give up, even though the odds chopped. And the second one, I would argue, and this is probably a big stretch, but maybe it's, I don't know, a sign. I think that Aaron Cockerell's form, I don't want to say it's side by side with Yannick, because it's not. But because the finishes didn't get him to where it's been, right? Last 5 events for him, or 4 events for him, 16th, 21st, 2nd, 13th. But if you adjust those and you look at tour tips over the past 8 weeks, right, they have him 3rd in the field in form. And I think 55-1 for Cockerell, when you look at kind of his style of golf, right, it's once again, it's not something that he is going to pound it off the tee. He's often losing 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 10 yards, off the tee to the field average. What's he do well? The rest of the game on in. He had putted it exceptionally well when he lost out to Herbert. I think Cockerell 55-1 for the recent form, and we fall into a much better line course for him is where I want to land.
Yeah, so I think first of all with Pepperell, I think we said last week that he'd probably finished 10th to 12th without really contending, and that's basically in the end what he did.
Yes.
So yeah, I think we had a good discussion here, and he's the person that probably is the most volatile in the betting market of anyone. Maybe like Houghton Lee, someone like that. I guess that like they can have one good week and be 30-40-1, have one bad week and be 100-1 again. Like they're those type of people, because Pepperell has the ability to look like the worst driver of golf, whatever. But during that stretch of form last year, he actually really improved off the tee, and if he can just kind of do that well enough this week, then I think he's got a really good chance. So do like Pepperell. It does seem more up his street this week as well, which is only a bonus after the 9th place finish. And very much the same with Cockerell. Like when I think of Cockerell, I think of just like the South African swing, Kenya, even in like I think he's played well in France on the Challenge Tour and things like that. Like I think he's very much a case of those. Not even just a case of it has to be a short course. It just has to be a bit more of a technical course. It has to be a bit more thinking behind it. A lot of scrambling he's very good at. So, yeah, like I was very close to Cockerell. I think in my head, the price was a little bit short, but only because I'm just so used to seeing Cockerell. This is the first time I think he's ever been respected in the odds market, which is probably a good sign that he's actually improving a lot as a golfer, because he's always, I think, pretty long at 100-1, 110-1, 125-1, but consistently, even when he's been playing solidly. So I think this is the first time they kind of caught on to him, and that could be a really good sign going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's can you take advantage of your form? And he's stretched together a good amount of starts in a row, which, yeah, it is similar in the sense that it is a little bit reactive to the odds, but I don't want to give up on these type of guys, especially when I think a course plays into their hands now.
Yeah, like I don't think you can. I think if you do that, I think we've seen, I've been guilty of it, and I think we've seen people do it for weeks. Like people, think about the people that would have backed Wyndham Clark and just given up on him for 1 week and happened. I know it's PGA Tour, right? But like sometimes when you've got your guys or you've been tracking someone for a decent amount of weeks, it's very much the case with Yannick Paul for me at the moment. Like I genuinely believe he's going to win, and his price isn't varying too much between kind of like 20-1 to 30-1. I'm going to just keep backing him until he gives me reasons not to, and probably the same with Campea for some people. So Cockerell's probably the first time you've had to ask yourself, is it okay to back him at these odds? But ultimately, he's playing well enough to warrant them.
Yep, 100%. All right, our alignment of the week, Tom. I'll let you lead in, because most people, they knew this was a lock on my card. Absolute lock city. So tell us why.
Is it just because you want me to butcher the pronunciation? Because I will do. I think it's...
Honestly, yes. That's 100% why.
Is it Hugo Sassard? That's what I'm going with as a French golfer.
I think that's pretty good, right?
Yes.
I like calling him Hugo, but yeah, I think
it's probably right. We'll find out in commentary this weekend, because he's going to get a lot of coverage if he's in the mix. And the reason being, he's leading the Road to Mallorca rankings on the Challenge Tour. His last 3 results have been 1st, 15th, and 2nd. And when you look on Tortoise, which, as you mentioned, is already adjusted for field strength and things like that, he's actually the 13th best player in this field, which when you factor in the fact that he's playing just these weaker events all the time, it suggests he's ready to make that leap up, right? And what I liked about it, he hasn't come to the DP World Tour. I don't think he's barely even played on there at all. But like when he's played the Sunshine Challenge Tour co-sanctioned events, second in Cape Town, sixth at Dimension Data, back-to-back top 20s after that as well. So we don't know, and the thing I sort of said on Lost of Words earlier, like this could either be the biggest prize we see Soudal for a while on the DP World Tour, or this could be the shortest we take him for a year, because he could very quickly prove in 2 or 3 weeks he's not up to this level. But it feels very much like Gouvier a couple of years ago when he was getting, promoted. Like he looks pretty much streets ahead of the rest of the competition at the moment, and it's now a case of proving himself on this stage. And I see no reason, as a French golfer in Belgium, why that couldn't be a good place to do it this week.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like Jens Dantorp was the one last year, right? I think he opened maybe around triple digits for the first thing, and I mean, he was 28s, 30s after one good performance on the DP World Tour. So, I'm loading up on these type of opportunities, and especially when you get a weaker type field. And I would classify this weaker than the last few weeks that we have seen
100%
overall.
Like,
so besides Dietrich, if Dietrich didn't show up, then
it's not a big.
Are we scared of Dietrich?
Not based on history, we're not, are we? Like, as much as we probably should be in terms of, like, if you looked at, I guess, probably data golf and things like in terms of skill set, like he's probably far ahead of most people. But like in terms of the eye test and what we know about the winners of the topless market, like as much as we're waxing lyrical about Yannick Paul here, and you've got Alexander Bjork, not the most proven winner. You've got Thorbjørn Olsen's in and out. Callum Shinkwin's not the best winner at all. So yes, you've got Campillo, you've got a take out there to do win, but not every week. So no, nothing to be afraid of. And I think it's a really nice easing in period for Soudal now, where he could really come to the fore very quickly. And it's a little bit the unknown, and I like that. And I think the 70-1 was, or 66-1 was plenty good enough at this point.
Yeah, 66 I'm in on. I'll actually let you lead into your next selection, because it follows in line of somebody who had that same type of challenge towards success. Of Santiago Tardiobán. That was him. What, 3 years ago now? 2 years ago.
I think so. Maybe 2 seasons.
But tell us.
Yeah. So for me, it's the first time we've had reliable, strokes gain data for a while, and he led the field in approach and was third in tee to green. So
that felt so good to track
to see it.
Again.
Yeah, it was
so
nice.
Good.
Yeah, well, it was nice until it was your player to put it into water or trees or whatever, or miss 4-foot putts. But he was solid enough here last year, like 33rd, without ever really going deep. But the fact that he's just hit those irons really well, tees green, great all round. I trust him to make the birdies required to compete here and cancel out any tough holes with the bogeys. So it's a little bit of maybe just trying to chase the good strokes gain numbers from last week. I'm not going to try and hide behind that, but it's good to have that data. He's a good player, really solid player. And if I'm talking about someone like Hugo Soudal of trying to catch his potential, then we probably shouldn't give up too early on Santiago Tarrio either.
Yep. Tom, I hate this next pick for me, and I hate it because I had it chalked up as you were going to be on with me. You thought I was going to be on last week. You were on. I expected you to go back this week, and I'm on.
I'm not entirely against this, by the way. So I'll let you talk me into it.
I think it's DVT time.
Yeah.
Danny Van Ton. It's similar to the Hoshino effect for me, and I don't know why, but I think Daniel Van Tonder's game is different than what everyone thinks it is. Personally, I don't think he's as good of a driver as people give him.
I used to think he was a long driver who could could rip up par fives, but he's not long at all, really.
No, he loses to the field almost every single time. Even back in like 21 when he was playing well, I mean, it was almost half the events, but in those events, which he gained, he wasn't gaining on the field in distance.
No.
Really until the course in which, and again, I was really on the fence, yes or no, what pushed me over is his victory on the DP World Tour was at Cairn Country Club, the corollary to Guido that we mentioned. And that week, he drove it incredibly well. The week even prior, he drove it incredibly well. Tight tree-line track in which even when he has gained, it has been not really just bombing it past the field. And even in that situation, those 2 weeks, he was better distance-wise. And if that's the case, I think it plays more into him hitting it straighter when he goes longer than other people are able to, that it might be more sprayers of the ball. So I think DVT's game is way more fit this week than it was last week. And last week, you were awesome to nail that each way on him, but his game was approach in. He was just middling on off the tee. He was really good approach, really good chipper of the golf ball, putted it well. And maybe you're right, with those middling events in the Sunshine Tour, just don't fancy him anymore. He's done enough there. He needs to take a step up. What's he do? He goes in each ways there at the Ryder Cup venue. I think that form, that corollary for me, and what I think fits way better into his hands, because he has not gained on the field basically distance all year. And if it has, it's been middling. I think this is the perfect type of setup for him. I mean, when he was at the PGA Championship, he was losing to the field in 21 at Kiowa in distance, yet still gaining almost, a half a stroke per round. I think that shows the type of game he can have off the tee, and I love it at the corollary course this week.
I think he's one of those people, like, I think when he was playing, like, because like some of those like South African events or altitude, I think he was just getting a lot of distance in those events, and because he was playing those a lot early, like his raw data made him look like a longer hitter than he was. I don't know if that's just me remembering it wrong or anything like that, but I always envisioned him just being a decently long driver. And when you actually look at him statistically, he's not. And like you say, he doesn't gain that many strokes. So tee to green he does, but a lot of it's approach and around the green, which is really important. And like you say, I think he's long enough. So I think it's a bit like Campillo. I think they're long enough to compete at these types of golf courses. And whereas some people have got to sort of club down, they can kind of hit their driver straight enough to still take advantage of it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I do like it, and I think I'll be on board again. It was one of those ones where I was like, do I just am I chasing last week's kind of thing? But no, I think he's right, and I think that I actually think that yes, he's cut in half in price, but I don't know if that's indicative of the finish combined with the lack of field strength in comparison to last week. I actually think he could have been cut even further.
Yeah, 70s is good to me. I like 70s on him. It's a great each way you can get with that. So yeah, I think DVT.
Like I'm thinking Zanotti's 50-1, and how long? When was the last time Zanotti played well?
Yeah, I mean, I could never hit him right anyways. But yeah, Zanotti. I mean, even if you look at like Wilco is 55-1, right? I'm as hard as anybody on Wilco, but Challenge Tour, a couple decent finishes 2 starts ago, and then a Sunshine Tour better finish, but nothing exceptional. So
yeah.
I think it plays right into Van Tonder.
Yeah, no, I like it. I agree.
I have one more selection. Sadly, it's not 1,000-1.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed.
We're staying within. I got one guy I want to talk about after that, but okay. We're staying within ourselves here, and I am going to make an exception. Not exception. If somebody is going to overpower the course, I talked to Nina Berg, 55-1, right? If that bag of tricks is there, I think the person that can do it is Alejandro Del Rey, arguably longer than Wilco. And Del Rey last week, I was mad at myself on Wednesday or Thursday morning because he was flying. He was off, I believe he was 3 under through 12, sitting pretty, exceptionally well. I'm like, man, he hits it long, could have known drivers or distance was going to be important there. And at the end of his first round, he finished with 10-7. So 8 over, ends up 5 over on that first round. Still found a way to make the cut. -3 on Friday, -3 on Saturday. Not a great Sunday, 74, but that's coming off of a top 17 the timeout. And what does he have in his game? It's just absolute driver heavy. Now, he could be in the trees left and right all day long. It is tight there. But if he's going to be the one that I think could overpower it, I think Del Rey's game is better than what it's saying in the form. 110's a little bit lower than I thought he might have been. I thought we could have maybe got some 200s, but he has popped at some courses. So I think there's enough in his game that I'm willing to take that at 110.
I think Del Rey is one of those that has that kind of, despite the fact he hasn't contended like seriously yet, like he's got that name value because people do attribute that kind of driving success to him. So I think that's why we don't get the odds that we potentially think we could. But I also think that's also why he makes a ton of sense. Like there's a reason he's getting that kind of recognition. It's because he is very good. So probably, like you say, definitely playing better than the kind of finishes suggest, but also maybe being asked to take a slightly shorter price because of his skill set, I guess.
Yep, 100%. All right, I'll let you round us out here with your final one.
Yeah, so for me, we talked about overpowering the golf course, and I don't think this guy's necessarily going to do that. But Will Besseling, last year, he was inside the top 5 for strokes gained off the tee. He was actually 5th last year in this event. He led the field in driving distance. He averaged over 325 yards. And greens and regulations, he was 3rd as well. He hit over nearly 78% of the greens that week. So we can tell straight away that what his problem was. He didn't have a great putter. He was basically tied 23rd and didn't really get anything going. So just a really solid week. And that's basically been the story of his season so far. He's recently come with top 26 finishes in Japan and Italy as well. He's just one of those that I think a lot of people were kind of backing Will Besseling a lot last season based on those tee screen numbers, based on his off the tee numbers, hoping that he was going to overpower a golf course at some point. He never quite did. So to me, I think now is the time coming back to a golf course. He played well at last year. Holland and Belgium's pretty close together, and I think you can see some crossover there. And just the fact that he knows. I wonder if he's going to change his approach like this time. Is he going to go from trying, because he's obviously tried to overpower it last year, got some great greens and regulation numbers, but maybe not put himself in the right positions on the greens to make the putts because he's been playing from the rough or whatever. So whether he's going to change his tactic or not, I don't know. I don't know if he's got the ability to. I don't know if he's a bit one-dimensional. But I just think Besseling's got an opportunity after the last couple of weeks where he's finishing the top 26 to go on and give himself a chance of that each way money. A little bit like Van Tonder last week. Just think the skill set works. We've seen something from the course last year. And he was just very solid, like 69s and 70s last year without being able to get that low number. And you don't know whether it's he just had a bad putting week, which Will Besseling's very prone to, or whether that is just the absolute best he could do on the golf course. So I'm interested to find out at 130 to 1.
I think the best time to be on Besseling is when no one else is.
Yeah.
Like if Golf Tips Checker tweets Besseling with no one next to it but you, that is the best time to be on him. Like he is somebody in which, we've had a tough time nailing him down. And I think there's a lot to like with him showing up here. The one golfer that I think if you guys dug in and you looked at, this would be the one anticipated me of betting. Let's see if I can get the odds. He was, I believe, 1,000 to 1 available on him. 15-year-old Lev Grinberg is playing this week on the DP World Tour. He was the second youngest player to make a cut on the tour last year at this event. 14 years old, 6 months, 6 days when he made the cut a year ago at this event. He also got through U.S. Open qualifying or mid the second round in the past at the age of 13. So if I looked at Grinberg, I don't believe, he doesn't have any, he's still playing junior events, actually kind of decently overall. But Grinberg is somebody who's kind of exciting in that way. I think he was he was almost dead last people that made the cut. He went out in 70, 69. So that's a fun story to root along for somebody before their driver's license out here making cuts in the World Tour.
He's Ukrainian as well, right? So wasn't there that storyline as well? And was it Guan Tia Lang that's a younger person that's made the cut? Was it that Masters cut that he made, or who's been younger than him to make a cut on the DP World Tour?
I don't know. That's a good trivia question.
Maybe I didn't mean to actually stump you. We'll find out next week. But I just wonder if because I know Guan Tia Lang was young when he made the Masters cut. I don't think he was younger than that. So I don't know if that's included, and maybe that's what it is. But fun story there. I think there was. Did you have any is there any golfers that you'd be disappointed if they kind of went well and you weren't on. I looked at a couple like JC Ritchie. I really liked last season, and he had a decent performance last week, or a decent couple of rounds, and played well here. Or he had one good round here last year, but he played well in the Belgian knockout 1 year before. So I liked him. Xander Lombard had a really good finish with his irons yesterday.
Yes,
that was interesting.
Very, very good.
Clement Soudal has been playing well. I just couldn't really get there.
Yes, he would have been the one for me.
Yeah,
that was right there.
Like they're probably the three. Alex Fitzpatrick's always fun to look out for. Now he's back here again.
Yeah, I thought. Borja Verto was somebody who kind of had shown up, I believe, on the. It might have been a DP World Tour event that the Magic Kenya Open, in which he finished 5th, coming off the Challenge Tour. He's been okay overall. There was 2nd in another DP World event earlier this year too, or I guess end of last year. So he was somebody. There has been again, it doesn't take much to catch my eye when you get down the odds board, but Freddie Scott, he was 1,000 to 1 last week. I just thought that was pretty odd. I mean, he has not played well at all, but he's 21 years old. He was every week basically close to the favorite on the Challenge Tour during his kind of run. And again, at that age with that upside, right? I mean, he won one event. I think he was like top 10 to 3 events prior to that. Like, he went on a sick run, and he made the cut last weekend after he had finished strong the week before when he had missed the cut, like on the number. So like, it doesn't take much again for like 1,000 to 1 guy to catch, but he quickly got down the odds board after a really good Challenge Tour year.
Yeah, the other one kind of from the Challenge Tour, I think Axis actually put him up on Twitter earlier, was Pierre Binal, who he's just so volatile. Like he was 7th in that STC Open, then he was 15th in Kenya, which obviously you've been talking about that you do like, and he opened up with a 65, closed with a 67. 21st again, I think in India, and then 18th last week in the UAE Challenge. So I could see him making a top 20, top 30. I don't necessarily know that there's too much winning upside for him at the moment. But yeah, I think it's one of those. I think when you look at last year's leaderboard, I think we will see the cream rise to the top, and I think we've identified those guys that can do it. It's gonna be an interesting week. I think it's gonna be really interesting to see if the likes of Nick Backham, Del Rey, Besseling try and attack the golf course from that point of view, or they look at how Horsfield and Fox did it, where they are longer players, but they managed to dial it back and perform from the approach standpoint. So lots to really look forward to, I think, this week.
Yep, 100%. All right, Tom, let's go back to the betting cards and we can close out.
Yep, so for me, it's 20 to 1 Yannick Paul, 66 to 1 Hugo Sassard. I'm going to join you at Daniel Van Tonder at 70 to 1. Santiago Tarrio 80 to 1, and Will Besseling 130 to 1.
Awesome. I'll be on Rikuya Hoshino 35 to 1, Eddie Pepperell 45 to 1, Aaron Cockerell 55 to 1. You said the name. Hugo Cusar.
I don't know if it's Cusar. I say Susard, but I don't know if I'm just being
Susard.
I don't know if I'm just being posh.
Hugo Cusar 66 to 1. DVT Daniel Van Tonder 70 to 1, and then Alejandro Del Rey 110 to 1. It takes a lot for me to stop a card at 110 to 1. That must mean a PGA Tour card is going to get wild this week. I'd like to run it back. I forgot about that. Yes, lock in Micheluzzi as he's getting. I mean, he was tied for first in par breaking that week, setting up for a huge week on the PGA Tour. No idea how he got that exemption, but we do love to see that. Tom, I say we get back together for the PGA Championship next week. There's more DP World Tour guys playing, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a good time for us to identify some guys. I enjoy those. I enjoy the ones where we look at some of the people that, some others wouldn't necessarily look at. It adds value to DraftKings, adds value to obviously betting cards and long shots. So certainly, I think, ultimately it comes down, we're talking about this, maybe the guys that people do know about with Moronks and people like that. But if we can find one further down the board, maybe based on what they do this week, then it'd be interesting to talk about.
Yep, 100%. Awesome. Well, you guys enjoy the week. If you see a petition going around to bring back the Belgian knockout, please sign it as we look to get it back on the schedule next year. But enjoy this one, and we'll catch you next week for the PGA Championship. Thanks, guys.
Good luck, guys.